Just moments ago, the palace was shaken by an unexpected and deeply emotional disclosure from Princess Anne, a revelation that has cast a shadow over the future-facing image of the royal family. Known for her restraint and silence on private matters, Anne's decision to speak has immediately raised alarms across Britain and beyond. According to palace sources, the information shared was not intended for public discussion, yet circumstances forced a rare acknowledgement. What makes this moment especially unsettling is not only the nature of the news, but who delivered it. Princess Anne has long been regarded as the crown's most disciplined voice, someone who speaks only when the situation leaves no alternative. The revelation centers on one of Prince William's children, instantly shifting public attention from royal duty to parental fear. Insiders describe a family struggling to maintain composure while navigating a situation that no amount of protocol can soften. The palace's carefully measured language suggests seriousness, restraint, and an attempt to protect a young life from relentless scrutiny. Prince William and Princess Catherine have remained silent, a silence that speaks louder than any statement. Their absence from immediate commentary has only deepened concern, fueling speculation that the situation is far more delicate than the public is being told. As the monarchy faces unprecedented pressure from multiple fronts, this development cuts deeper than politics or succession. It strikes at the heart of the royal family, exposing the fragile line between public duty and private pain. What Princess Anne revealed has changed the tone inside the palace entirely. And as Britain waits for clarity, one question now hangs heavily in the air. How much of the truth is still being withheld? And how much can the crown afford to reveal? Inside the palace, the atmosphere reportedly shifted the moment Princess Anne's words reached senior officials. What had been a routine day of briefings and engagements was abruptly overtaken by concern, restraint, and a renewed emphasis on privacy. This was not a matter of policy or protocol. It was a matter of family. Sources close to the royal household emphasized that the situation involving Prince William's child is being handled with extraordinary sensitivity. Details remain deliberately limited, not because of secrecy for its own sake, but because the well-being of a young royal has been placed above public curiosity. In an institution often accused of emotional distance, this response marks a rare and visible prioritization of humanity over tradition. Princess Anne's role in this moment has drawn particular attention. Her decision to speak, even in restrained terms, was reportedly driven by necessity rather than intention. Known for her unwavering discretion, and has long served as a stabilizing force within the monarchy, someone trusted to balance honesty with responsibility. Her involvement alone signaled that the situation had reached a level that could no longer be addressed through silence alone. Prince William and Princess Catherine's continued absence from public commentary has only reinforced the seriousness of the moment. Those close to the couple describe parents fully focused on their child, deliberately withdrawing from the spotlight to create space for care, reassurance, and stability. Scheduled engagements were quietly reassessed, not as cancellations, but as recalibrations, a subtle but meaningful signal. The palace's language in subsequent communications reflected this shift. Phrases emphasizing compassion, understanding, and respect for privacy replaced the usual formal cadence. This was not accidental. Royal messaging is meticulously crafted, and in moments like this, every word is chosen to protect rather than provoke. Public reaction has been immediate and emotional. Across Britain and beyond, expressions of concern have overshadowed political and royal discourse. The usual debates surrounding the monarchy's relevance faded, replaced by a collective recognition that vulnerability does not discriminate, even within the most protected family in the world. Yet the challenge facing the palace is delicate. Transparency must be weighed against protection. Too little information invites speculation. Too much risks intrusion. Navigating this balance has long tested the monarchy, but rarely with stakes this personal and immediate. Princess Anne's measured intervention appears to have been designed to anchor the narrative, to acknowledge gravity without inviting sensationalism. By confirming seriousness while withholding specifics, she effectively drew a boundary. This is real, it matters, and it will be handled with care, behind closed doors. Senior advisors are reportedly aligned on one priority above all others: shielding the child from unnecessary exposure. This includes limiting visual access, controlling information flow, and reinforcing internal discipline regarding leaks. In an era of constant scrutiny, such containment is no small task. For Prince William, the moment carries additional weight. As heir to the throne, he has long balanced public expectation with private responsibility. The situation forces that balance into sharp focus. Those familiar with his approach describe a man resolute in one belief that no future role outweighs the immediate duty of a parent. Princess Catherine's role, though publicly unseen, is said to be central. Known for her focus on early childhood development and emotional well-being, she is reportedly guiding decisions with calm determination. Her influence reinforces a broader shift within the monarchy toward empathy and modern family values. International observers have taken note of the palace's response. Unlike past moments where silence bred mistrust, this approach, limited acknowledgement paired with firm boundaries, has been widely interpreted as responsible and humane. It suggests an institution learning from history rather than repeating it. What remains clear is that this development has temporarily reshaped the monarchy's internal priorities. Ceremonial concerns have receded. Strategic planning has paused. In their place stands a singular focus on care, discretion, and unity. As Britain waits for further updates, the absence of noise may be the most telling sign. The palace is not deflecting, it is protecting, and in doing so, it sends a subtle but powerful message that even within the most tradition-bound institution in the country, compassion can take precedence over ceremony. Whether more information will be shared remains uncertain. What is certain is that this moment has revealed a quieter side of royal life, one where titles fade, roles soften, and the shared vulnerability of parenthood takes center stage. And as the nation watches with concern rather than curiosity, the monarchy faces this test not as an abstract institution, but as a family navigating a moment where restraint, empathy, and unity matter more than ever before. As the palace worked to steady the situation, attention quietly turned to how this moment would be managed over time. Royal crises often unfold in stages, but those involving children demand an entirely different approach. Advisors were reportedly clear on one principle: whatever unfolds next must minimize intrusion, speculation, and long-term impact on a young life still forming beyond the reach of public expectation. Within royal circles, comparisons to past moments were deliberately avoided. Officials were said to be keenly aware that historical parallels can inflame rather than inform. Instead, the focus shifted to modern safeguards, privacy protocols refined in recent years, media coordination agreements, and a renewed emphasis on discretion across all levels of the household. Princess Anne's involvement continued to resonate internally. Her words, limited though they were, had effectively drawn a line between acknowledgement and exposure. In doing so, she provided a framework the palace could follow, recognize the gravity, confirm care is being taken, and resist the pull of detail. For an institution often criticized for emotional distance, this restraint was widely seen as both strategic and compassionate. Prince William's role during this period was largely unseen, but deeply influential. Sources describe a deliberate withdrawal from routine royal visibility, paired with active engagement behind the scenes. Decisions regarding future engagements, messaging cadence, and even ceremonial planning were reportedly adjusted with one priority in mind: ensuring stability without forcing normalcy too soon. This recalibration extended beyond the immediate family. Senior royals were briefed on expectations, not instructions. The message was subtle but firm: unity must be shown through restraint, not performance. Public solidarity would be expressed through silence, consistency, and respect for boundaries rather than statements or appearances. Public response continued to evolve. Initial shock softened into concern, then into something quieter: empathy. Across social and traditional media, calls for privacy outweighed demands for information. This shift did not go unnoticed within the palace. It reinforced the belief that the public, when trusted, can respond with maturity rather than sensationalism. Media organizations faced their own reckoning. Editors weighed headlines against responsibility, knowing that overreach could permanently damage trust. Several outlets reportedly chose to scale back coverage voluntarily, a rare moment of collective restraint in an industry driven by immediacy. Behind closed doors, practical considerations were addressed with care. Security protocols were reviewed not for threat, but for comfort. Scheduling flexibility was built into upcoming weeks. Internal communication channels were tightened to prevent accidental disclosures. These measures, while procedural, reflected a broader understanding. The monarchy's credibility depends not only on tradition, but on its capacity to protect the vulnerable. Princess Catherine's influence continued to shape the response. Those familiar with her approach describe a calm, deliberate presence, one grounded in empathy and long-term thinking. Her advocacy for emotional well-being within families was no longer theoretical. It was being applied under the most personal circumstances imaginable. International reaction remained measured. Commonwealth leaders and diplomatic partners issued quiet messages of support, rather than formal statements. The absence of spectacle reinforced the sense that this was not a constitutional moment, but a human one. What remains striking is how quickly the palace adjusted its rhythm. The monarchy, often perceived as slow to change, demonstrated a capacity for rapid recalibration when the stakes demanded it. This adaptability may prove as significant as any public announcement. For Prince William, the moment underscored a reality long understood, but rarely tested so directly. That leadership begins not with visibility, but with judgment. His handling of this period, prioritizing care over commentary, has been widely interpreted as a reflection of the kind of monarch he may one day become. As days pass, the absence of escalation speaks volumes. No additional revelations, no dramatic updates, just a steady, deliberate quiet. In a media environment conditioned to expect constant development, stillness itself becomes a signal. The palace's approach suggests confidence, not in outcomes, but in process. By resisting pressure to explain, clarify, or reassure beyond what is necessary, it affirms a commitment to dignity over demand. Whether further information will ever be shared remains uncertain, and perhaps that uncertainty is intentional. Not every moment requires closure in the public eye. Some moments are meant to be carried privately, with care rather than commentary. As Britain continues to watch with concern rather than curiosity, the monarchy stands at a subtle but meaningful intersection, where tradition meets compassion, and where restraint becomes the clearest expression of strength. As the days progressed, the palace's strategy settled into a steady, deliberate rhythm. There were no sudden announcements, no hurried clarifications, and no attempts to steer public emotion beyond what had already been acknowledged. This consistency was intentional. In moments involving children, senior advisors believed stability itself as reassurance. Within royal households, routines were quietly adjusted, staff schedules were softened, public-facing engagements were redistributed. The goal was not withdrawal, but balance, maintaining continuity without imposing expectations on a family, navigating a private challenge. This distinction mattered deeply to those shaping the response. Princess Anne's continued silence following her initial words was equally significant. Those who know her well describe her approach as precise: speak once, clearly, and then step back. By doing so, she prevented a cascade of interpretation and ensured that the focus remained on care rather than commentary. Her restraint reinforced the boundary she had already drawn. Prince William's leadership during this period was evident not in speeches, but in decisions. Advisors noted a calm decisiveness, an ability to weigh institutional needs against personal responsibility, without allowing one to overwhelm the other. Meetings were concise, directions were clear. The emphasis remained on protecting a young family member from the long shadow of speculation. Princess Catherine's presence, though largely unseen, continued to shape the tone. Her long-standing work around childhood development, emotional resilience, and family stability informed practical choices, from limiting exposure to managing transitions gently. Those close to the family describe a united front grounded in empathy rather than protocol. Public engagement followed the palace's lead. With no new details emerging, attention gradually shifted from speculation to reflection. Commentators spoke less about the monarchy's future and more about the pressures faced by families living under extraordinary scrutiny. This reframing marked a rare moment where public discourse aligned with institutional intent. The media landscape adjusted accordingly. Some outlets chose to contextualize rather than sensationalize, focusing on the broader implications of privacy, responsibility, and restraint. While not universal, this shift reduced the intensity of coverage and allowed space for calm to take hold. Inside the palace, advisors monitored sentiment closely. The absence of escalating concern was taken as a sign that the approach was working. When the crown resists overexposure, it often invites patience, a lesson learned through difficult chapters in the past. Internationally, the response remained understated. Messages of support were conveyed privately, respecting the palace's boundaries. The lack of formal statements reinforced the understanding that this was not a matter of state, but of family. What became increasingly clear was how this moment subtly reshaped perceptions of leadership. Prince William's handling of the situation, prioritizing care, delegating visibility, and maintaining composure, offered a glimpse into a style of authority defined by judgment rather than assertion. It suggested continuity with tradition, tempered by modern sensibility. The monarchy itself appeared to absorb the lesson. Institutions often reveal their true character not in ceremony, but in restraint. By choosing patience over performance, the palace demonstrated an understanding that credibility is preserved through consistency, not constant presence. As time passed without incident, the quiet itself became reassuring. No escalation suggested steadiness. No corrections implied clarity. In an environment conditioned to expect immediate resolution, the acceptance of uncertainty marked a cultural shift, one that favored well-being over immediacy. This approach did not eliminate concern, nor was it intended to. Concern, after all, is human, but it redirected attention away from conjecture and toward empathy. In doing so, it reduced the risk of lasting impact on a young life still shielded by careful boundaries. For the royal family, this period underscored an enduring truth. Titles do not insulate against vulnerability. The same challenges that test families everywhere, worry, protection, patience, exist even within the most visible household in the world. Acknowledging that reality, without exploiting it, became the guiding principle. As Britain continued to watch with measured concern, the palace maintained its course. No deadlines were set. No expectations were raised. The message was implicit but firm: when the time is right, clarity will come, and until then, restraint is the most responsible choice. This moment may be remembered less for what was revealed and more for how it was handled. A test of compassion met with composure, a challenge answered with care, and an institution often seen as distant choosing, quietly, to lead with humanity. As the palace continued its careful course, the focus remained squarely on preservation, not of image alone, but of family, trust, and emotional stability. Every decision was measured, every word considered, and every action calibrated to protect those most vulnerable. In an institution historically driven by ceremony, this deliberate prioritization of well-being represented a profound and subtle shift. King Charles and senior advisors reportedly observed proceedings closely, though from a respectful distance. Their involvement was framed less as oversight and more as support, ensuring that guidance was available without intrusion. This approach reinforced the broader principle that even the highest authorities are accountable to humanity, a lesson both traditional and timeless. Prince William's role throughout remained consistent yet invisible. He was described by close aides as deeply engaged behind the scenes, balancing operational decisions with parental responsibility. The crown's machinery continued to function, but it was now aligned with one unmistakable priority: safeguarding a young family member from the pressures of public scrutiny. Princess Catherine's quiet leadership complemented this dynamic. Her influence, while largely unseen by the public, shaped choices about scheduling, media interaction, and emotional support. By focusing on resilience, routine, and empathy, she ensured that practical measures reinforced the moral imperative: care above all else. Internally, Princess Anne's initial intervention proved pivotal. Her rare public acknowledgement established both legitimacy and boundaries, demonstrating that even in highly controlled environments, transparency and compassion can coexist. Insiders describe her approach as an anchor, a reminder that the monarchy, for all its traditions, is ultimately a family bound by duty, love, and discretion. Public perception evolved in tandem. Initial concern and speculation gradually gave way to respect for the palace's measured approach. The nation, momentarily gripped by anxiety, began to recognize that restraint, patience, and careful stewardship could convey far more strength than constant commentary. Silence, in this case, was not avoidance. It was a deliberate strategy of protection. Media coverage, while intense at first, softened in response to the palace's consistent message. Details would be shared only when appropriate, and public conjecture was unwelcome. Several major outlets explicitly framed their reporting in terms of privacy and responsible journalism, signaling a rare alignment between public interest and discretion. Internationally, diplomatic channels confirmed a quiet understanding. Leaders expressed support for the family,